Hello, everybody. I am Sean Steinmarc. This is JT, otherwise known as James Thompson. We're here to help you, hopefully, here to help you build up your businesses, your new ideas. We're going to help you figure out really quickly, in probably about 40 minutes with some question and answers afterward, what you need to do to start along that path. Quick intros. My name is Sean Steinmarc, as I said. I have been involved in some startups over the past 5 years. I have had successes and failures, and one actual success that turned into a failure that flipped back over to a success. So hopefully from those failures, I can keep you from making the same mistakes. JT?
So I run what is predominantly a software development company, but a pretty large portion of what we do kind of on the front end of our customer relationships is help them make good business decisions because we typically take equity in our customers. So we want them to be successful from a business standpoint as well as a technology standpoint. And so my company is Daft Labs. And effectively, what we try to do is try to make sure that we put people on the right path, that they've got all the guns pointed in the right direction. And they don't take a lot of the common missteps that the inexperienced CEOs and those kind of things take, right? Fundamentally, our primary demographic comes to us and it says they have $1 million idea. We try to convince them that ideas aren't worth anything and execution is worth everything. And so we really kind of fundamentally believe that there are $1 million teams and that they can take a mediocre idea and make that excel, right? You can take a $1 million idea and just sit on it and never go anywhere with it, right? So that's kind of what we're focused on.
Now, also, we're very big encouragers of social media, so feel free to use your phones throughout the event. You could use the hashtag ASE15 as everyone's doing, hashtag startup. Our Twitter handles are at the bottom there, too, if you want to look up anything or do whatever. We are? All right. So, why don't you take us through the process of how companies build?
Sure. So, everybody's got an idea at the beginning. That's kind of like it's the thing that everybody has, but it can be the hard part sometimes, right? So, this is a really important image. It comes up later in the slide. And effectively, an idea is the original seed for something. And a lot of ideas that people have are terrible. And it's important to vet that and make sure that you get kind of the market research, the feasibility, that you aren't talking to friends and family about whether or not they would buy it, but you're talking to actual customers and those kind of things. And from there, you want to move into what we call family. We try to make these things all Fs. Family is really your team, right? That's where the money comes from. And you want to assemble a good team as one of the first things you do. Accountants, lawyers, designers, tech, marketing, sales, all that stuff. You guys are the marketing piece, hopefully. That's why you're here.
Also, we're going to be going through each of these items individually throughout, so you don't have to quickly write, just to give you the concept there.
Yep. And then so after that, you may want to pursue funding of some kind. There's 3 major types of funding. We'll talk about those. And after you do funding, you want to actually build the thing out. And you want to. A lot of people want to build oil tankers when they can afford tugboats. And so it's really important to define your feature set and your MVP and all of those things, and make sure that you're iterating in a sustainable way. And that's what that last piece is, which is feedback, right? That's the loop, the feedback loop. That ultimately feeds back into features, and you'll be iterating your features probably for the rest of the company's lifetime, right? You'll get customer feedback, you'll get vendor feedback, you'll get whatever, user experience stuff, and all of that kind of feeds back into your existing feature sets, and we'll cover that as well.
So, feasibility, the first F in our grouping here. JT touched on this earlier about the concept that everybody has $1 million idea. I'm sure everybody in this room is here because they have an idea. Just because you have an idea does not mean it's a great idea, and just because some people tell you that the idea is good doesn't mean it's a great idea and it's going to be a successful idea. So an example that a lot of people have is that they go out and they have an idea and they ask some of their friends, they ask their family, they say, hey, I have this idea for a company, and your friends and your family who have nothing to do with the company think it's wonderful. So an example is that JT and I are big fans of whiskey. We actually have a blog that is not very often updated called Social Malt, which is a blog about marketing and whiskey. If we went to our friends, and even our friends in the marketing world here, and said, hey, we're going to start up a Social Malt branded whiskey, and everybody's going to love it, I'm sure that 10 out of 10 of our friends who are also whiskey drinkers would say, absolutely, I would buy your bottle of whiskey. I guarantee that nobody else in this room would buy our bottle of whiskey. It's not a great idea. It's not a great idea just because some of our friends told us so. We need to go out there and test it in a real market, find people that don't know us, and test your idea. You want to check on that feasibility. Ways to do this. You want to get out there and throw some surveys. So there's a ton of tools out there. You can use Google Forms. You can use SurveyMonkey, User Voice. These are all survey tools that you can use. Throw out a survey on sites like reddit.com. There are specific subreddits that are devoted towards surveys. Go out there and think about where your possible customers might be. Maybe they'd be at a coffee shop. Maybe they'd be by a Subway. Maybe they'd be anywhere. Just find where your customers might be and start talking with them. Find random people, tell them about your idea, and ask them if they would buy it. It's the best way to test. Don't look at people you know. Look at random people who would be your actual customers. One other big thing that I want to make sure everybody here understands is that even though, so you have an idea, and you don't want to tell anybody that your idea because you're afraid somebody will steal it. And everybody has that feeling. I had that feeling when I first started out in this world. I heard a great quote. I think it was Eric Ries up on stage once said, take your second best idea. So we're all entrepreneurs. We have tons of ideas. Take your second best idea, figure out which company would steal that idea, find out who at that company would be in charge of that idea, call them up and give them that idea. Guaranteed they are not going to do anything with it. Even though it's your second best idea and it's phenomenal, people are busy. People don't have the time to steal your idea. Plus, even if they did, it's all about the execution. It's your idea. You will execute better. Do not worry about giving away the secret sauce. It's more important to get feedback from as many people as possible. Test before you waste all that money, all that time, all that effort on something that maybe should have been a little bit different. Family. JT, you want to talk a little bit about?
Sure. So our agency, if that's what you can call it, it's more like an incubator or a bunch of geeks. I don't know. We've got 25 people, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the larger company sense of that, the agency sense of that, and Sean will talk about kind of the individual sense of that. And so there's it's really important to hire good talent. A lot of people, especially in the software development world, kind of they look at resumes and pedigrees and all of those things. And I think in order to really assemble rock stars, you shouldn't look at their credentials, but you should look at things that they've done in the past that have been successful. Somebody that's built some sort of successful platform and done an exit, or those kind of things. You want to hire up, right? You don't want to hire people that you need to coach or train. You want to hire people that you can bring in and just kind of let do their own thing. And those people will come to you with novel ideas. Those people come to you, they'll challenge your existing company infrastructure. They'll do those kind of things. I remember very vividly the fourth employee we ever hired came to us and he told us one of the code bases that we had been working on was the most terrible code base he had ever worked in. That resonated with me really well because I wrote like the first line of code in that code base. But we've been hiring up even above him ever since. I am the worst programmer in our company, and I'm really great by kind of average industry standards, right? And so we really like that our people can come to us and they feel like they're our equals and they can challenge our thoughts and ideas. Those kind of things are what lead to our innovation, right? There's a lot of very geeky kind of stuff out there that's kind of always coming out, and those kind of people are what move the organization forward, as opposed to kind of getting stuck in a 10-year-old paradigm of software development. 10 years ago they were pushing people into Git and those kind of things, and it's what really pushes us forward. In terms of designers, look at people that have really great portfolios. People that have gotten national press, those kind of people that have. Where you can look at their portfolio and designers are actually really easy because you can look at their portfolio and you can get a feel for what they're going to be like, right? You don't want to bring somebody on that's worse than you are. You want to bring somebody on that's always going to be better than you. Whenever something comes across your desk, you want to feel like you're the worst person to do it. And so that's an important thing. For marketing people, you want people that have, you've been successful affiliates, or you want people that have successfully run OPM agencies, those kind of things. And you need to, you want it to be a sales pitch from you to them to leave what they're doing to come to you, which kind of brings me to my next biggest point. We typically don't hire unemployed people. Because people that are unemployed, there are exceptions to that, but typically people that have been unemployed for large tracts of time are unemployed for some reason, right? And even, I think in this industry specifically, all of the affiliates kind of think and feel like they're unemployed anyway. I always used to say that I was gainfully unemployed when I was an affiliate, and so those kind of people, they'll go make money off the internet kind of as an individual, right? And those are the kind of successes we look for. But it's really important to build a dynamic and super strong team where you feel like you're the worst person on the team. So that's my feel in terms of actual employees.
There's another a good concept out there coming out of the book Good to Great, which is focused more on like large corporations, but I have always subscribed to it. When you're hiring for your company, don't just look at what positions you have open and want to fill them. The idea is think of your company as a bus, and the bus has certain seats. And there might be a seat for a designer, a seat for a coder, a seat for a biz dev person. It's not as important to get people into the seats as it is to just get the right people on your bus. Find the seats for them later, but get the right people on the bus. You want people with the right mentality. You want entrepreneurs. You don't want people that have been in the corporate world for 30 years to then come and join your company, which might need them to be awake at 2 o'clock in the morning handling an issue. They're not going to be in that mindset necessarily.
I think it's a really good point because a lot of people come to us and they ask if we're hiring, if they can look at job descriptions and things like that. We don't have job descriptions. Yeah. Typically my question is like, how good are you and what are you good at? And I'll build a profitable job around those people, right? If you have a skill that's particularly unique, I feel as though I could trust you and you're a very good person, I will bring them in and we'll build the revenue around them.
Definitely.
So,
how are we there already?
yeah.
Sorry.
So the other big thing that happens a lot is people have novel ideas and they'll try to assemble a team kind of based on equity. And so they'll do this 100% equity thing where they kind of slice up their company. They say, oh, if you develop this app for me, I'll give you 10 or 20% of the company, right? This book, Slicing Pie, is absolutely amazing for that. Because the trick with especially software engineers, but this applies to designers and marketing people as well, is typically at the beginning of a project, there's somebody that's very much overloaded with work. And if you don't make it through that process, let's say you're developing an app, you need the app to exist in order to be able to sell it, right? So marketing people aren't really doing anything during the development of the app. So they kind of pitch it and do user experience testing or QA or those kind of things. But really, the software engineer is taking all the risk in the beginning. And the marketing person, after the software engineer builds the app and is kind of like sitting on their laurels and just hanging out and fixing bugs and stuff, the marketing person is taking all the risk. And so Slicing Pie is a really good book. You can read it in like, what, an hour or two?
Yeah, it's a quick read.
It talks about kind of this dynamic pie that you set forth, right? So you guys set your rates. And in the beginning, the software engineer will own 90% of the company because they're doing 90% of the work. In order to gain that piece of that pie back, the marketing person has to contribute, enough extra work to make that more like 50% or something like that. And so what it really forces, kind of idea people that don't have skills to have skills that they contribute to the company. And if you don't have skills, you need something else like money.
Yeah. So basically, the pie, the overall amount of equity in the company, your piece of that pie will just change dynamically, constantly based on the efforts put in by various people. But the idea there isn't that, well, I'm not going to have a big piece of the company. But like you start off with a small pie, and maybe the developers own this much of the pie starting out. But then the pie grows because of all the effort put in and all the the building. And now, well, marketing people have this much, and that grows as they're putting in more time marketing. Read the book. It'll explain it probably a lot better with graphs and visuals, which is a little more typical.
The best visual ever.
Yeah. Did you like that?
Yeah. Sorry I was coughing so much right now. I'm crying. So the important theme of the book is that people tend to slice the pie before they bake it.
Yes.
With this, you're slicing the pie as it grows, right? When you stick it in the oven and you kind of get revenue and all those things, the pie is growing, right? So the idea is that don't set those percentages out ahead of time. There's a really good structured system. There's all sorts of like legal documents for doing your, kind of your funding and that stuff. There's Excel spreadsheets for tracking all the stuff. They tell you how to like value somebody's time. Ooh, take over the next slide.
Yeah. The big thing with this too is that everybody, I'm involved with a startup right now that's kind of just starting out, and we're getting to a point where we need to figure out equity. And the folks who don't have startup experience are just basically saying, well, why don't we just split it up evenly? And that's kind of the worst way you can ever do a company. Never start off by saying, well, let's just each take half, or let's each take a quarter. Everybody's going to be pissed off, actually, but somebody will be pissed off. And it will either be the person who isn't getting as much and thinks they're putting in too much effort and they're not getting compensated adequately, or maybe it's the other person who feels uncomfortable leaving because they have too much at stake. Try to make it equitable. Even if you don't go with the dynamic model, which has its own negatives as well, it's never equal. So figure out truly how much effort over the next 2 years, 5 years, how long down the road are people going to be involved, and work it out that way. Don't do even splits. Now that was all if you're building your own, and by the way, we are blowing through a lot of concepts on high level. We're happy to answer questions afterward or in the middle. If you have a question on what we're saying, just ask. Now, if you're not building a team, if you're trying to figure out how to do this on your own, or maybe you want to outsource, you want to use some other sites. So 99 Designs is really good for putting out design ideas, and what 99 Designs will do is you throw out your concept, people will respond with their design ideas, and then you pick which idea you like the best and run with it. Fiverr gives you a lot of opportunity for very inexpensive, $5 a pop for quick, easy tasks. Maybe you just want a logo designed. The best way to use Fiverr is to pick like 3 or 4 different people, throw them all the $5 tasks, see who comes back with the best option, and then continue with them. Elance and Odesk merged together. It's now known as Upwork. I just didn't update that logo. Upwork is basically a way to find freelancers on absolutely anything. I just did a project this weekend. I needed something really quickly built, a website really quickly built inexpensively. And so the way we did it similarly, we shot out and said, all right, we're going to go out and pay, I think we did 5 different coders to build a single page and saw what kind of response we got. And this wasn't a complicated website. So I didn't, we don't need to go out there and find a robust agency to do it. We picked the person who came back with the best option, and it was fairly inexpensive. Upwork is a really good way to outsource overseas or even in the United States. And then Amazon's Mechanical Turk, I think of it as using humans for artificial intelligence tasks. If you have something, let's say you have a stack of business cards or a spreadsheet. You have a spreadsheet with a bunch of data entry that needs to be spell checked, and it's not necessarily going to work if you throw it through a spell check engine. What it does is live human beings go in and they earn, let's say, 5 cents per row for what they do. So it's processing a huge amount of information, data, reviewing stuff, whatever it might be, by live human beings. So you're not relying on AI. So Mechanical Turk is a super helpful thing. And by the way, we do have a link at the end with a list of all these tools with hyperlinks that you can go check them out.
So I think that most of you guys probably know about the first 3. A lot of people, especially in the affiliate space, undervalue Mechanical Turk. Just a quick aside to kind of outsourcing and those kind of things. Back to the usability feedback. I read a really great blog post probably a year ago now. Somebody was in the feasibility stage of their startup, and they actually did $100 Mechanical Turk tasks, right? And you can set the demographic for those things. So let's say that you're doing a women's product for women that you think should be between, say, 25 and 35, and you want to survey single women between 25 and 35, right? You can set that in your demo on Mechanical Turk. You can send them the survey, and they'll fill it out. And so that's a higher volume task, but it's actually a really great way to get completely honest, demographically accurate user feedback.
You should smile for Steve.
How's it going, Owen? I hate being on camera. I know.
So we're going to go back through, and we're going to give you guys an example. We're very big on the whole minimum viable product, minimum viable products. JT referred to it earlier as MVP. In the startup world, there's this concept of minimum viable product, and it's the idea that you do not want to launch with a full product out the gate. This was my first entry into the startup world. We spent a year developing our product. It was amazing, and we developed this really robust platform that did a ton of different things. And then about 3 months later, we ripped out at least 75% of the features that we built because users didn't use them. So you have to think about, have you had that experience, or you're? Well, and that's, I was the marketing person, but.
We'll totally get into that. Actually, here, let me take over and I'll, this is
so
my
JT
part of the
will
presentation.
pop into this explanation.
This is what our company is really good at, right? So, I didn't realize you pushed it. Okay, so before we get into that next slide, we need an idea, right? Like, so I'm gonna pick an idea that we've had, right? And so the idea is it's kind of a pain in the ass to get links to recommend things to people, right? You have to like go log in your network's portal, and you have to like grab the link, and some of the networks do a really poor job of just doing the links. You have to like rip it out of the HTML and that kind of stuff. So a lot of networks and merchants have data feeds, right? So what if you just built a search engine for all of those data feeds, and you just put it on like an iPhone, and you could search those things, and you could just email that to somebody, right? It kind of consumerizes the affiliate relationship. And so let's use that as an idea, right? So if we were to like sit in a room for, I don't know, a couple hours, you'd have a bunch of features on here. I'm not going to go through them all, but you got like things like profile, and you got to like do customer support, and you've got to like get brands on board, and you've got to do in-app purchasing and logos and all these things, right? Like this is just like a brainstorming crap you've got to do to make this possible, right? So this is the audience participation part. What on here do you guys think is the minimum viable thing for doing a pre-sales or market testing thing?
This is the user or
you guys have
participation round here.
Yeah, to participate.
To refer links to friends. So JT asks me for a suggestion for a widget, and I say, oh, I know a great widget, and I want to send him a link, but I then have to like go log into ShareAsale, find the link, give it to him. This is a much easier.
I play a lot of pool. And so let's say you're playing pool with me, and you're like, what pool queue do you use? I'd like to be able to go look that pool queue up and send you an email with some pricing and stuff in it, right? That's kind of the idea. And normally you'd have to like go find it in your merchant, and maybe you're not in the program and all that stuff, right? It's kind of annoying. So what do you think? Logo. Okay. Anybody else? Thoughts, feelings?
First thing that you do when you have this idea.
Oh, come on, people.
Come on. Well, now everybody.
Okay, now everybody's going. All right, how about you in the back there?
URL.
Not terrible.
What'd you say? Who's your customer? Have signups, I think you said.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Mike, what did you say? I just heard you. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Mike lost his voice before this conference, and I've been trying to get him to talk as much as possible.
Yeah, it's great. So the only thing that you really need, actually, sorry, I got ahead of myself there. So I'm gonna do it anyway. So the only thing that you really need is list capture, right? You need to do feasibility.
So you win a prize because you kind of were on the right path.
Yeah. So the idea is that you need to get feedback from users, right? Like you have an idea. You don't need a brand yet. You don't need guidelines. You don't need to be pushing people through PPC. All those things. You just want to make sure that people are into your idea, right? And you can expound on it. My favorite thing to do is expound on that list capture with pre-sales, right? And get people to put a credit card in with their email. That kind of separates the people that are just kind of testing the waters from the people that are just saying, sure, this is cool, or that are actually interested in buying this thing, right? And so typically what we do is we take all those features and we drop them into a project management system, right? And my favorite one is Pivotal Tracker, right? So I'm very software focused. So Pivotal Tracker, I think, works for everything. Josh, who works with us, disagrees with that a lot. We argue about this stuff all the time. So the idea, this is just a quick screenshot of Pivotal, allows you to get all those ideas in the icebox, right? And the icebox is just like where you store all your ideas. And then when you decide to do something, when your users start to ask for it, or you get a lot of people involved, and a feature starts to become popular. Let's say you have a lot of customers, a lot of customers start asking for the same thing. You start dragging those things into your queue and start working on them, right? And so I don't use Trello very much. I understand its value.
Yeah, so Trello,
yeah.
because I've used it a lot, I deal with a lot of people who are not nearly as technical, and Trello is not as robust as Pivotal, but it's super simple for people to handle. I've used it with people who don't really use computers, because literally you just make a list, you put each of those squares is a card, so the task is on the card, you assign somebody to the card, and you can just drag and drop it between different lists. So you could have this needs to be done, this is being worked on. It just simplifies it. So I only really recommend Trello for situations where you can't get people to use something more complicated, because it's more important to just have something people will use and follow, whether you're using outsourced people, a team. Just make sure you have some sort of a project task manager that everybody is involved in and utilizing, so you can keep track of everything. Because you have tons of ideas, you don't want to lose any of them.
I think, and the most important thing across all these platforms is that icebox thing, right? There should be a barrier between when one person asks for something and when you implement it, right? Because you need something to be monetizable. It needs not necessarily monetizable, but useful, right? Across multiple people. You don't want to spend a lot of time and resources building stuff for a single person, those kind of things.
And prioritize. It's good to prioritize with these types of things.
So getting back to the kind of the feedback stuff that we talked about before, also Trello does this. There was a piece of software that we mentioned called User Voice, which actually you can take all of these tasks and you can throw them up on a site that people can vote on. And so then your consumers can just come say, I want this, right? And so we work for a nonprofit that basically does that. And people are always asking them for features. And what we try to do is the people that ask for a feature, we say, sorry, we can't do this for just you, but go here to User Voice. We've put your feature in, it's right here. Get people to vote for it. And then, if you reach a threshold, we'll build it. Because that means that there's some traction there, right? So I'm going to come back to this list, go through here. We're going to talk about feedback here. And so do you want to take this list?
Sure. So as we had mentioned, list capture and customer feedback that's the most important thing for the stage you're at probably right now with you have your idea. There are a bunch of different ways to do this. These are three sites you can use to very easily and quickly get your idea out there. LaunchRock, basically it just creates a simple website for you that you can just give a description of what your product is, and it has an email box for list capture. So you can build up that email list of interest. What they also do is you can do sort of little contests of, let's say you have your widget product and people are entering their email address in order to get early access. Well, if they share with their network and use their referral code or tweet it out, they get bumped up in the list of early access. So the concept there is trying to encourage people who are really into your product or your idea. You're giving them incentive to then share with their community. So it's a really simple, automatic, quick way to just pop out there and get your list built up from people who are actually interested in the product, not just friends. BetaList is a site, and EarlyBird. BetaList and EarlyBird both do similar things where early adopters just subscribe to this. So I subscribe to both BetaList and EarlyBird with specific topics that I'm interested in. And every so often, or like once a week, a couple times a week, I get an email that says, here's what's new on BetaList or what's new on EarlyBird. And you get invitations to try out new beta versions of things. And so this is perfect for your MVP, for your minimum viable product where maybe it's not full features, but you have some features out there and you want to see how users use them, you want to get feedback. Part of the requirement with EarlyBird is that I use the product, I'm expected to go give feedback. And it's solicited, but it's not a survey. It's me using the product and then giving feedback to the person who developed it. And the people on these sites want to help you. It's not random, everyday customers who aren't going to really be responsive. If you're on EarlyBird, you're there really to help build products, just for people, and it's no money. I don't think either one of them charge. So I highly recommend checking those out if it's appropriate for your idea.
So does everybody here remember Coin? Did anybody sign up for it? All right,
Right, we
cool.
got one, two. How are you enjoying your new coin that didn't come out ever?
So I've got some fun stories. There's some pretty interesting camps with Coin. More or less, in the current state of the market, everything that they're proposing to do is illegal. So sorry. Coin is a way for you to store your credit card on a single device, and it changes the magnetic stripe. So there's a little button on it. You can press it, and you can change cards, right? And you have one card to rule them all, right? I used the word illegal. I didn't mean to use that word. It goes against the guidelines of all the credit card companies, and so it shifts the fraud protection from the credit card company to the merchant by using the coin. Because there's rules around, like Amex, says that the logo has to be here, and there has to be a customer service number here, and all of those things. And if you don't have those things, then you're responsible for any chargebacks or any things like that on the card. And so there are a lot of people that think coin is never going to happen because of those issues, because Amex will just not honor any charges on any coin. Ever.
So the thing with Coin, they launched a pre-sale site, amazingly successful pre-sale site. They got out there, and it was $100 retail, $50 if you bought the product pre-sale before it was ever developed. It's just an idea. They supposedly had a prototype. So $50. For everybody that you got to sign up with your code, I think you got a $10 or $15 credit. It was something along the lines of if you got 3 or 4 people to sign up with your code, it was free. So I know tons of people, my friends, people that are not in the affiliate world, not in the tech world, not in any world, all of a sudden this thing was all over Facebook. And it's just because everybody said, well, I can get it for free. It seems like a cool product, probably worth $50, and if other people sign up, great, it's free for me. So they made a ridiculous amount of money, millions and millions of dollars through their pre-sale site. And when were they supposed to deliver them? It was early this year, I think.
I think the initial was last September.
Right.
Late last year, yeah.
So what we're talking about here is pre-sales, right? Which is my favorite way to pursue funding. We'll talk about funding a little bit later, so I'll try not to talk about pre-sales too much. But they've proven the crap out of the market demand for this, right? So there's another camp that thinks that Coin will be successful because this challenges the current paradigm. It's what startups should be. It's disruptive, and they've proven enough value here that not only are like Amex and Visa and MasterCard pursuing kind of their own versions of these things, but they're getting the clout like Uber and Airbnb and Lyft and those guys got in kind of like the cab world and the hotel world. They've proven the concept so hard that it's really hard for Amex and Visa and MasterCard to kind of just say, well, it's not in our terms and conditions, blah, blah, blah. We should pursue this, right? And the optimistic part of me likes to think that even though they're behind, that they will get there because they've proven the market.
And the important thing here to recognize is why we're bringing this up. It's the idea of proving the market, and they have their user base. They know people will already pay for it because people already have. So it's the best way. They didn't even have a product out there, so their MVP was an idea. So they didn't even need to have a physical product. So prove the idea before you move forward.
Also, if you're looking for a landing page, it's really awesome, like something to like really aspire to be. Their landing page is amazing.
It's really pretty.
So that's the point, right? This is where the list capture thing comes in. So I want to talk about MVP. Of all of those things up there, these are the things that you really just need. This is what we call not completely useless phase, where you take a product and you push it out, and it basically does nothing. This is back to that idea, right, where people can make product recommendations off product data. All you need is the product data and the ability to send an email to somebody, right? You don't need categories, avatars. Important thing, frog in my throat again. Important thing to notice is there's no sign up there. There is no reason somebody has to sign up to that service, like some other new service for whatever reason, to be able to send an email from the platform to a friend, right? So really look really hard at the things that you brainstorm and really try to chainsaw the things out that you need. Because what happens is instead of trying to make assumptions about what your users want, you can listen to your users and build what they're actually going to use. One of the most expensive mistakes that a lot of startups make is they build a lot of features that nobody ever uses. And so that's what we really, really try to get people to recognize and not do. So I'm going to rapid fire through the next few slides, which are the next few iterations, right?
Actually, just one more point about the MVP, minimum viable product. The viable is very important in there. Don't go minimum product. It has to be something that people will actually use. The bare bones of what people will use, but don't just throw something out there that you'll be able to get some feedback, you'll be able to get some analytics out of it.
I did do a Twitter analytics project once. In our minimum viable product, we just had Twitter sign up with nothing on the backside. It was a picture of what it would be. That didn't work so well. So next iteration, right? You have MVP plus, where you're just kind of like, you're shoring things up, right? And so all we added there was analytics, right? You need analytics. You don't necessarily need them in the beginning to prove the product. Get them in there as soon as possible. I'm not saying this came out a year later. This is probably a week later, right? Next thing you want to do is version 1.0. So here's kind of like what it looks like, right? Get your business stuff in order. Make sure that you can do customer support, do all those things. This is when you do your launch party, right? And then, so we're going to go to 1.1, right? You want to broaden up the recommendations people can make. So maybe they can recommend stuff off Foursquare. Maybe they can recommend brands. Maybe they can recommend locations, those kind of things. So just real quick back and forth. It's 3 things in the middle there. You want to increase accessibility. So we'll go back and forth. You got barcode scanning, categories for search, right? You want to get the distribution going in the app. You want to make sure that people can explore and do things, right? Go to version 1.3, get social. This is where you typically go viral, right? The interesting thing here is this is where your social can start doing your marketing for you, right? At this point, you've proven that people are going to use the things kind of along as you go. And so now you're adding, here's the difference. You got social sharing, reviews, wish lists, news feeds, those kind of things. This is also when you get in there with profiles and stuff like that, signups and those kind of things, avatars. I forgot who said that. And then right around 1.4, and we're only talking about maybe 4 months later. Each one of these .x's is probably about a month worth of time. So here you are 4 months after your launch party, and you're starting to respond to your users, right? So here's the things that people were asking for. In-apps, in-app purchasing, favorites, those kind of things. You got offline products, and stuff like that. So we actually built this. We launched it in February. It's called Divi. And so we coached the CEO of Divi through this entire process, and it worked really, really well, and they didn't spend millions of dollars building it.
That's the key point.
They only spent about $40,000 building the whole thing, end-to-end, all the biz dev, all those things. I'm going to let you take over again.
Funding. So this is probably a pretty important, big thing for most of you here. So you have your idea. You yourself can't necessarily build it. You're not quite sure how you're going to go about paying for it to get built or designers or whatever. How are you going to fund your new startup, your new idea? The first thing that most people think of automatically is seed funding. Angel funding, venture capital funding. It's the type of stuff you see on Shark Tank if you watch it. Seed funding is out there for people to start businesses. It's a great thing if you have access to that capital. It takes a long time. If you don't have the direct connections, if you don't know somebody with the money, it's going to take you a long time to keep going through, getting slide decks, reviewing the possible financial projections, this and that for it. You could do what's called a friends and family round, which is literally going and talking to friends and family to see who might be willing to contribute a couple $1,000s here, a couple $1,000s there. At this stage, when you are just an idea, there's no real way to figure out what your company is worth. So what's used most often is called a convertible note. You can just look that up, Google it. The idea, the concept behind it is that it's a note that's sort of a loan. So you might have a family member who has money and is willing to sort of start footing the bill. But usually when that happens, when somebody who is not an investor, is not involved in this type of community, not an entrepreneur, wants to invest, they think that they're going to give you $50,000 and get 50% of your company. And that's not really fair. You're going to be doing a ton of equity, a ton of work. So the way to do it is to use this note where basically they're giving you a loan. So the note will be, let's say, a loan for 7% interest, payable back in a year. But it's also convertible into equity in the company at whatever point you have a convertible moment. So let's say you get this angel round, somebody gives you $50,000, and then 6 months later you actually have built a company and you're going for venture capital funding. You can be assessed for what your market cap is. We can figure out, you have institutional investors figuring out what your company is worth. At that point, that $50,000 is actually equal to a certain percentage of your company. So the person's investment converts over into equity involved in that venture capital round that you're raising money. So if you're raising $500,000, that $50,000 becomes 10% of that first round. So they're involved in it when they never would have been able to be involved in if they weren't in that first place. What also usually comes with this convertible note is what they call a discount. So they wouldn't actually get $50,000 worth of equity, they would get $60,000 or some other percentage. So they're getting a 20% advantage off of anybody else investing at that time. It's extremely risky. You also have to make sure if you're getting it from friends or family that they're completely comfortable that this money never comes back to them, because the vast majority of people that start companies, they fail. And no matter how much you expect it to be successful, you may not be successful. And don't burn your family or friends, don't burn those bridges. Make sure that they believe in you and make sure you're doing every effort to get their money back. But just make sure you're not having somebody mortgage their house in order for you to start your business.
This seed funding too, a lot of times is self-invested. A really common thing that I see in the affiliate world is somebody will become an affiliate, they'll make a ton of money, and then they'll go, oh, well, I'm a successful affiliate, I can build a startup. And so then they'll take probably too large a portion of what they've earned and invest that in a thing, and then all of a sudden maybe they're not as good a CEO as they are an affiliate. And so I see that happen a lot in the affiliate world. And I think that with self-funding, you should have the same approach as asking friends and family.
Yeah.
You should be comfortable basically taking that money and putting it on the table and burning it. And if you're comfortable with that, then it's a reasonable amount of money, basically. Because typically a lot of affiliates kind of jump into the startup world, jump in way over their head, and then kind of crash and burn. So it's an important thing to remember.
So you don't have access to capital. You don't really know anybody. You don't want to spend a lot of time trying to track down people to invest, and you don't want to go on Shark Tank. So there are a variety of crowdfunding opportunities, which I'm sure people in this room are you guys familiar with Kickstarter and crowdfunding options? So you have Kickstarter, you have Designbook, you have Indiegogo, Start Some Good, which is a more social good focus. So if you have kind of a social entrepreneurship, nonprofit, some sort of effort that's going to make the world a better place, Start Some Good is a really awesome company to use. Crowdfunding options. They're great because you're getting out there. It's a very simple way for you to put your concept out there in front of people. There are a lot of people that peruse Kickstarter looking for new cool designs to invest in. Start Some Good. They'll help you build your crowdfunding page and push it out through the social entrepreneurship community. Indiegogo, also a really phenomenal company to help you sort of get to that success with crowdfunding. You're more familiar with Designbook than I am.
Yeah, so Designbook's the one that I really want to call out here. Designbook is like Kickstarter for equity. But it's also like Odesk for equity, which is kind of cool. Kind of going back to slicing pie and kind of building the team and stuff. You can put job postings on Designbook and give them equity, right? Designbook doesn't charge for any of that stuff. So they're a Series 7 dealer broker. They can do a funding round. And every dealer broker that does a funding round takes a percentage. And so Designbook makes their money when they host your round and you successfully fund. So they're highly motivated to get you funded because otherwise they don't make any money. There are some new features coming on a Designbook. I think they're launching a beta feature where you can actually run your whole round through Designbook without doing the hiring part. They kind of launched originally with their MVP where you could trade jobs for equity. And then they're doing the one of their initial launch people for their actual full fund platform is that company Divvy that I was just talking about a little while ago. And they're doing that with fundable.com, which is kind of a social network for investing in things. So if you want to go just find things to dump money into and get equity and kind of micro invest in startups, fundable.com is another really good one.
And then back to the pre-sale concept, which we've kind of gone over. I think it's both of our favorite way to raise capital because not only does it get you money, but doing a pre-sale proves the concept. So if you can get out there, throw out a landing page, get some people to actually give you a credit card number to pay for a product that doesn't exist or a concept that doesn't exist, that's the best way to prove your market.
Also, aside from self-funding, anytime that you take money from somebody else, there's typically some sort of discount on that money. You have to pay like lawyers and fees and all of that stuff. Even if you self-fund, you should really do that right. But also, your broker is going to take a bunch of money and stuff like that. And then also, you're giving up 20 to 40% of your company for that money. A typical round is about, on average, 30% of the company. And the really awesome thing about pre-sales is if you're a really good marketing person, you can fund the entire kind of development budget, all of your branding, all of your marketing, all your software development if you're doing software, with pre-sales. And pre-sales, you're not giving up any equity. Realistically, the big thing you're putting on the line is your reputation, because if you don't build the platform, then your potential customers are the ones that end up kind of holding the bag. We got 15 minutes left, so we might rush.
We're getting there. We're almost done here. And then Incorporation, which there's different sites, there's different companies that can help you do this. You guys might already all here be incorporated. But Clerky and Biz Filings are two sites where you can find the documents you need and help get you incorporated for low amounts.
I want to specifically call out Clerky. Although they do have a name, they don't have a logo. That's just Helvetica font.
Yeah, we had to make that.
Literally, it's just text on their site. I had to like just go get the font and put it in the slideshow. They don't have an image that's a logo.
They're in beta.
Yes.
Feedback. So this is kind of where we got to, that it's important for you to get feedback constantly to figure out if you have the right product. And there are a ton of tools out there to do that. Number one, social media. Be active on social media, ask for feedback on social media, pay attention to people talking about you on social media. Pay attention to people talking about anything that could be considered a competitor or a competing product or an alternative to you. So if you are Coin and you have this credit card option, pay attention to people just talking about payments and credit cards, anything to do with that, even if it's not directly related to you. See what they're saying. Get Satisfaction, Zendesk, Olart, Groove. These are all ways that you can handle customer feedback and be available to your customers.
I also have, I want to throw somebody just right in front of the bus right now. His name's Justin. He's in the corner. He's really good at this stuff. Watched his session yesterday. And he actually threw up a bunch of tools on his session that are in the same vibe as this slide. They were completely different. There's a lot of tools out there.
Tons.
A lot of them are really cool. A lot of his stuff is focused on click tracking and intent and all of that stuff. And a lot of these are focused on more focus groupy, user feedback, idea generation, right? I didn't intend to make that part of the presentation, but I think he's a good person to talk to. I like yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, that brings us.
And so we're back to here. I just want to kind of like holistically sum things up, right? We take you through that possibility, that process of idea, feasibility, family, funding, features, right? Feedback. And then all of those slides that I rapid shot through, that's the feedback phase that we went through. Those things stack on top of each other. And the idea is that, in an efficient, in good way, every month you'll be pushing out new features that your users need or that your biz dev team needs. An important thing, I went to a UX conference a few months ago. Don't forget about your admins, your users, your content creators, the people that aren't general users of the website. Reddit just had a huge blow up about this because they don't provide good tools for the admins, or the moderators, I mean. So the moderators had a riot, they're the top 1% in terms of content curation and creation. So, make sure that you take care of those people. Make sure that you're listening to all your channels. Make sure that you know the value of all your channels. That's what happened to Reddit. They didn't know the value of their moderators. Or maybe they did and they didn't care. I don't know. There's all sorts of fun arguments there. Listen to everybody. Try to consistently be improving. Make it better every day. And follow that feedback cycle and really, build your product iteratively. Don't try to build an oil tanker. Start with a tugboat.
And hopefully, if you put all of these together, you will be flying on your way to success. All right. For the resources, the tools that we had mentioned here, and for a list of a bunch more, you can hit up that link. It will be continually updated. So probably revisit it in a couple of days, too, because I realized as we went through here, I missed a couple of tools that we actually put up on the slides.
Yep.
So now, what questions might you all have? How can we
make them hard, too.
Yes.
Oh,
all right, someone else.
Sorry.
No.
What are your thoughts on business plans in this process?
I like short business plans.
I like no business plans.
Yes.
If you have, I mean, the new concept out there is a business canvas, which I still also think is a little bit unnecessary. I think if you chart out the general concept of what you're trying to accomplish, I'm a big fan of get the MVP out the door as soon as possible, get user feedback as soon as possible. So there's one in particular. My first venture into the startup world, I came from a corporate background, lots of corporate background. And everybody on my team had corporate background. And we had a phenomenal idea. And we went out there, and when we went out to market, we had put together so many business plans and over, and getting funding, and doing this and that. And there is probably nothing from that business plan that was relevant 6 months later, except for the names of 2 people on the team. Everything else changed.
So I used to have the same sentiment, but as our company has grown, I've found that not for funding reasons or financial reasons, kind of the feelings of the business, the culture, those kind of things are really important to write down somewhere. Yeah. And that can manifest itself in what type of customers you're going after. Recently, we had not a big culture shift, but kind of a culture realization at our company where we were bringing on the wrong kinds of clients. And so we stopped, right? Like we just needed to stop and think and write that down. Everybody that joins the company knows that right now. And so that culture is clear, right? One of the really important part about our company is we like to take a little piece of everybody we work for. We like to have equity, right? And we discount everything, accordingly and stuff. But we were taking on like large corporate clients that didn't care about us and we didn't care about them. And we felt like that was bad. And it took us a little while to put our finger on it, but we put our finger on it and we wrote it down. So our business plan, so it's funny, our motto is math, not feelings, and our business plan is where we put our feelings. And so I've shifted my opinion, I think, as our company's grown. I think it's important for the employees to see the business plan.
That's not a business plan. That's more of a mission statement. I think that if you saw Brian Littleton's keynote, where he kind of listed off the 4, I forgot what he called them.
Justifications.
Yes, justifications. That type of stuff is important because it'll help, like JT said, it helps structures you as a business. But having to figure out on a business plan,
I'm just saying, dude, if you go look up a business plan template, the first couple lines are mission statement and vision statement.
You need the executive summary. Do the executive summary.
You can stop there probably. But yeah. I think that back of the napkin financials are good. Especially if you're doing a round, you're going to need a deck and you're going to have to get all that figured out. Yeah. I think it's important to identify your customer demographic. I think every marketer knows that. Throw in your features. Interestingly, do your business plan in a Google Doc that can change. Or like what we do it in a Git repo, and then you can version it.
Google Doc.
Like something that fits your culture, right? I guess that's the long and short of the business plan thing.
Yes.
You came up with the data feed idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw a problem, you identified what solution you wanted to provide. How do you get feedback? What were the target audience? And how did you get the feedback from them using the technology and on the other side?
Sure. So the question is, for the recommendation engine that we built, how did we get feedback? And there wasn't a wildly clear plan in the beginning. We just so originally the idea was that it would be consumer app, so we tried to target specific consumers, people in the outdoor space, and we tried to target. Then we started trying to target college students. We did focus groups with them and stuff like that. But as the idea kind of matured, we came up with some different versions that, like an enterprise version that. Like a retailer could use, that they could use, they could give to their associates. And so we went around to like literally hundreds of retailers and we just asked them if they'd be interested. And a lot of them said no, but a lot of them were very intrigued. And so there's a whole story behind that. But so we were kind of vetting things out. We knew that like the product feed recommendation thing would be a thing. I knew that would be useful because of my involvement with the affiliate world. This is just annoying to get links. And so that was kind of like the first little seed of feedback. And then we just kind of started expanding the circles. But those circles changed as the features changed.
Back of the room.
Life has an idea. It's a crowdfunding concept, category that hasn't done, like Uber or Airbnb.
So the question was that your wife has an idea that she doesn't really, it's a new idea, brand new to the world, and she doesn't want to give that idea out because she doesn't want somebody to steal it.
Yeah, and it's not a software that people could look at.
It's not software that people could look at. Is it more of a product?
Like you couldn't do a pre-buy. Like if Airbnb was the concept, you couldn't do a pre-buy because
Sure. So a pre-sale, okay, so it's not something people could actually purchase without it existing. There's no pre-sale concept?
I disagree. You can absolutely do pre-sales for that.
Well, we don't know what it is.
Right. Well, right. I suppose. Yeah. Let me talk about Airbnb because you likened it to Airbnb or Uber or something like that. You can totally pre-sell that. You just sell vouchers for the service, right? When I was a kid, my parents started a golf course, which is a service.
story.
Yeah. So this is where I really got into pre-sales. It really worked. They built a golf course. It is not like a highfalutin golf course. It's like where rednecks go, like BYOB. Like it's pretty awesome. And it's like we turned a dairy, like there used to be a dairy farm, we turned it into a golf course. And so my dad was looking at this business plan, back of the napkin, it wasn't wild, that said that he basically needed about $300,000 just to build the course. And then he'd need $100,000 to run it for the first year. And I had the novel idea, well, why don't you just sell memberships? But don't sell just regular memberships. Like only before you start the golf course, sell a charter lifetime membership for $4,000. It's a membership that somebody can buy. Their children can inherit it. They can donate to anybody they want. It's $4,000. He only had to sell 100 of them. He sold them in about 3 weeks. And he had $400,000 and 100 customers already that he was able to build a golf course with. So a golf course is very much a service thing, right? You could do that with Uber. Sell a lifetime pass.
So let's say I start a new company and I own 100% of it, and I'm bringing on that team. How much equity do I give that team? I know you mentioned the slides in front of you. But, I heard like a 5% when you give to the CEO who's coming in, and like a rule of thumb on percentages.
5% is a lot.
Yeah. It depends. It depends.
So at our company, and I can speak for our company specifically, we're a little different. We're not a product. My business partner and I own 45%, and our employees own 10%. So that's kind of our model. If you come into a startup as an employee, at least in the New York area, I'm pretty sure it's fairly similar in San Francisco. You can expect something like 0.001%. It depends on the valuation, though. So if you have a company valued at, say, $5 million, let's do $10 million because it's really easy math. If you have a company valued at $10 million, you want that options package for them to be something like $10,000 or $20,000. So whatever that math comes out to, right? Somebody do the math for me. I don't.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I think it's 0.002%. And so that's a good way to do that.
And you also want to factor in, like, so first off, are you paying them any money or are you only giving them equity? What are they bringing to the table? Are they potentially bringing connections to bring funding into your company? Are they going to be putting in an insane amount of time compared to other people? So if your company in your mind is worth this much, and maybe there's not a number value because it doesn't exist yet, but it's worth this much. But if you get so-and-so to join, it's worth this much. Maybe they're a big name, maybe they have tons of experience. You know that they'll get you there 3 months later versus a year and a half later. That's worth more. So you kind of have to balance a lot of those different options. I don't know. I find it really hard to pick any particular number without the specifics of the situation.
What we're saying here is it depends.
Feelings, not math.
Yeah. So cool. I think unless anybody else has a quick question, they're probably gonna just like boot us right now.
But we're around. Ask
Yeah.
us.
We're around.
Email us, tweet us, whatever you want. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Hopefully you're going to be...